Good morning. It looks like everybody needed to stretch. That was an amazing panel. We are looking forward to having an equally interesting conversation. The one thing that we've noted in getting this panel together is profit with purpose is a term that's evolved, right? And so we were like, wow, things are moving so fast. How are we going to address this? Now we were just discussing AI and the workforce, and the very same issue was surfacing is that the jobs of yesterday, the skills of yesterday are evolving even faster. So I would say that's the overall theme of this. I'm Karen Gordon. I get to be the moderator. I have a consulting company, and I also do a lot of other things. The main thing that I do now that I really enjoy is that I actually work with PhDs across universities to commercialize their intellectual property, and most of it is in the manufacturing area, deep tech. So for the last 5 years, I've been focused on that, on building out companies across every kind of industry, but all in deep tech. Prior to that, I had done 4 startups. I worked in enterprise, American Express, Verizon, a few others. But ultimately, there's a very little story that I have to tell you, is that my very first internship a long time ago was in manufacturing in a textile mill in Italy. And so I fast forward to where textiles are and how we're manufacturing them, and everything around fast fashion is a really interesting topic. But now, in the area of manufacturing, I'm working with a young company, 2 people. They have $500,000, and they are created a machine that bends conduit. That's what they built. It bends conduit. But why is that important? Is because their machine can sell for $250 million. Okay, that's a lot, but not a million. No, sorry, 250,000, not a million. So the current one is $1 million. So I was just like, how's that possible? But it's possible. So there's opportunity everywhere in manufacturing to redesign and rethink. I also want to just mention that we were talking about leadership before, and I wanted to instill on you, and we discussed it, is that we view everyone in the audience as a leader. You're going to be taking hold of something new, and you're going to be moving it forward. So don't wait, and that'll be kind of a theme that we're going to talk about. Profit with purpose also needs perhaps a new definition, and we're looking at sustainability as being it. But first, let's hear who all these panelists are.
Okay. Good morning. This morning was a little bit different for me. I was walking my 4-year-old to school. Anyone else with kiddos? Okay, so she loves to talk about POOP, and normally we were doing that, but today, or trying not to do that, but today she fell asleep. And so I'm like, I'm going to think about the session today, what I would like to learn from all of you. And the through line of my career certainly is environmental sustainability with business. Like, what else? This is manufacturing. I realize I have an intrinsic love for impairments and externalities. And I actually don't like those things. Those are bad for businesses, but I like dealing with them and thinking about the questions surrounding, especially in this policy environment today, what are the impairment risks for massive global supply chains or domestic? Those aren't easy when you have a big balance sheet and things are shifting. And externalities, emissions, water externalities, toxins, many different things. And I think having the benefit of working at Deloitte, emerging markets across sectors, my favorite, what I go back to, and when I started my own firm 5.5 years ago, I love manufacturing because it's hard to figure it out, and I think it's really underappreciated. So 5.5 years ago, started Telesto Strategy. We focus, and we've had to pivot over the past 12 months or so, given the policy environment. So we don't have a broad sustainability imperative. We think about the energy transition and AI for building digital twinning technology. We think about climate risk, and we think about transparent supply chains for tier 1, tier 2. We have to be specific. I'll leave it at that for now.
That was great. Can you hear me now? I'm Kim Reddington. I'm with United Scrap Metal. Hard to follow Alex here. And we are a 47-year-old manufacturing company focused in recycling metals, headquartered here in Chicago. Born out of a need to provide for her family, Marcia Serlin founded us 47 years ago, and we have since strategically grown and become a $750 million company. So we're in that middle market size space. I love the connection to mHUB for her innovation, for her resilience, and entrepreneurship, which I am really encouraged here, being at mHUB and seeing so many people in the room who have similar desires and great things that they're doing as well. So I'm encouraged that you will all do amazing things. Personally, I've been with United Scrap Metal for 20 years. So similar to Jennifer, pretty much my entire career has been spent at United Scrap Metal. I did not have a strong desire to go into this field, but was kind of recruited and coerced to come in and do an interview, and I fell in love with the culture. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today is the purpose side of what we do, and so I think that's where I can add value, because certainly the world of scrap metal recycling is directly in the circular economy, which is wonderful. So what we're doing is in the world of sustainability, we are the end of life, so we're going to pick up metal from a manufacturer or an industrial account. We're going to bring it to one of our 11 locations across the United States and process, sort, and segregate that material, and then ship it to a foundry or a mill that's going to remelt it and make it into brand new material again, like a coil or a bar or something like that. So a really important role in that life cycle of metal. So love that part, but also we are people first. So I'm excited to talk more about that. I'm also a mom. I have 3 little ones. They're, I guess, getting bigger now. I have a teenager. That's an interesting world to delve into. We can talk about that maybe another time. So mom is something I'm really proud of. And I guess outside of spending my time working, I could be considered an Uber driver for all of the activities that my kids do. Apparently, they like all the sports. They don't want to choose one. They want to do all of them. So if I could get paid, or somebody can figure out a way to have your children pay you to drive you everywhere, please let me know. And that keeps me busy and fulfilled outside of what I do at United.
Thank you. Let's move to Alex.
Kate.
Kate, oh, sorry.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kate Jakubas. I am the founder of Meliora Cleaning Products. It's about 7-minute walk from here at the Make City Incubator, ICNC. So it's a manufacturing company. We are a certified women-owned manufacturing company. We are a certified B Corp. So profit and purpose is really deep and meaningful. We were founded on the idea of being a better company. Does anyone know what Meliora means? It's a Latin word. Okay, in English, we have a word, ameliorate. It means to make something better. Meliora is right in the middle of that. It means better. It's a Latin word that means better. So it was really the founding principle of our company was to be better than the status quo in cleaning products, conventional cleaning products, and also to be a little better today than we were yesterday. So that culture of continuous improvement is super, super important to us. I'm a lean manufacturing background, Six Sigma black belt. So bringing that continuous improvement culture to not just manufacturing, which is really super useful, but also our business as a whole, our governance structure, living wages, treating our employees well, and making better products that are safer for people and planet. I feel kind of like I'm tied to both of these folks here because my undergraduate degree is in metallurgy, so I was a metallurgist for a few years, and then I went back and I got my environmental engineering master's, and so I did in fact study POOP and wastewater management. And so I'm really excited to be here with you today. When I'm not at Meliora Cleaning Products, I also teach sustainable operations management for the Quinlan School of Business.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so these are pretty amazing women, right? But I want you to reflect on how amazing you all are, all right? And the reason that I say that is that we didn't get birthed like this. We evolved to this. And so kind of think of it, if we're going to talk about profit and purpose, just reflect on your personal purpose also as we have this conversation. We're going to talk about it in the corporate sense, but you can think about it of what your purpose is and where you're headed. A lot of the conversation today has been around that and where you're headed. So the first thing I want to know is who who has heard of profit for purpose? Can you just raise your hands? Raise your hands. Okay. Or not all of you. Okay, so we're actually going to have to define that for you, right? And then ESG. Who knows what ESG is? Okay, so we have a bigger word, ESG, and it's couched in things. But we're going to meld it together. But first, we're going to define it very quickly. Each person will go ahead and do that. Alex, why don't you go ahead and define that?
Sure. So this question, I'm afraid, is going to reveal a very deep personality flaw. I'm contrarian by nature. I've tried really hard over these many decades. I struggle with the notion of purpose because I don't see a counterfactual. And mind you, I work in sustainability and climate supply chain. I have the privilege of working with very large companies based in the United States and overseas. I haven't met one leader who would say, I don't have a purpose. So that's why I don't think there's a counterfactual to it. And when something doesn't have one, I struggle. Right now, in this policy environment, I'm thinking a lot about environmental security. I'm thinking about nonpartisan, technocratic debate that will say, okay, what are the policies that make sense from environmental security perspective? Water, energy access, critical mineral access, resilient public infrastructure that businesses need. And then when I layer on cost efficiency, that is a winning combination right now for corporations. They're playing in a different sphere. Their top constraint is not for cost efficiency, it's now national security. So manufacturing is looking very, very different. That's the frame I take.
Kate, go ahead.
Sure. So as a certified B Corp, our answer is pretty quick and easy. We're a triple bottom line business. People, planet, profit. We think about all three of those things. We don't just think about one thing. And that shapes every decision we make on a daily basis.
Okay, triple bottom line is another word. So just define that quickly for the people who don't know what that is.
So, traditionally, you've got a balance sheet. You're looking at a P&L. That's profit focused. We also have metrics that we look at, manage to, and report on when it comes to our people and when it comes to our planetary impact. So people, planet, profit is the triple bottom line rather than the single bottom line of just the dollars.
Thank you for that. Okay, Kim, I'm going to ask you to sort of delve into this also about ESG because we need to define that one.
Yeah, environmental, social, and governance is what ESG stands for. Since what we do every day is in the world of the E, being in sustainability, I thought I could give a couple of examples of how we incorporate really the S. What profit per purpose means is not compromising your company values, to me, for profit. And truly being a people-first organization. So within the S of ESG social, it's all about how do you interact with your internal and external stakeholders? That's your community, your employees, those are your customers, and your suppliers. So from a United Scrap Metal perspective, I'll maybe just take a couple of those just for time. But when it comes to E, when I say people first, the recent downturns, times where manufacturing in particular has experienced some pretty tough times, tariffs most recently, COVID, the economic downturn in 2008, we really looked at, as a company, where can we reshift some of our financial allocations so that we don't have to lay off one person. Although things have slowed down, our inbound flow, we're really predicated how busy we are is how busy our customers, right? Our manufacturers have to be generating scrap in order for us to be processing it and making it into something. And so I think that really says a lot. We also invest quite a bit of time and effort into the metrics of measuring people and the team member experience at United Scrap Metal. We implemented an annual survey that for the past 3 years, we have an 86% participation rate, which gives us a pretty good census to go from to base how are we doing, but also get some real data and feedback on where can we improve. Why this is important is because we take that feedback and each year create 4 to 5 goals across the executive team that we then deploy and implement based on our team member feedback. So when I talk about that S part being really important, that's how you walk the walk. So I'll give you an example of one in particular from this year that we're working on from our feedback from our 2004 survey. There was a language gap and barrier. A lot of our workforce is primary Spanish speakers, and that was some of the feedback that we got on the survey. I need to better understand how to do my job, do it safely. That's very important. So we engaged with Babbel. There's Babbel for Business now. We have a cohort of 30 people going through this year. It's been a great success. We have 20 primary Spanish speakers learning English and 10 English speakers learning Spanish. So that's been really fabulous. We've also developed a career path mapping. And that career path mapping means a lot. We want people who can see themselves moving up within the organization or lateral. It doesn't have to be up. Even in the world of operations, that can mean learning a new piece of machinery. Like, I want to learn how to operate the crane. That's not what I do today. How do I get there? So those conversations and mapping opportunities for our people are what help keep them. We have a really high retention rate, which is amazing. Helps keep them there. And then we also have a formal leadership program called United in Leadership. We're really creative with our naming. But United in Leadership is a 1 to 4 year program that internally we have 20 people for the past decade that have participated in that to help emerging leaders and maybe younger or newer leaders. It could be tenured leaders as well that will participate and really learn soft skill development. They're going to learn managing up, managing down. They're going to get presentation skills work, exposure to the executive team. So just some really key areas that not everybody has an opportunity to get prior to entering the workforce that we feel is demonstrating that commitment to the E and employees and the S and ESG. I can talk about community as well if we have time, or do you want me to move on?
We're going to move on, and we're going to pick up community in a bit, okay?
Sounds good.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to actually move to competitive advantage. So as you can see, this profit for purpose, this ESG, there's all sorts of different definitions for it, right? But it really is related to culture and values and how that connects and how it supports through the company, from the top all the way down. And so it can encompass many different things. So we're going to have a conversation about now how actually ESG can be part of competitive advantage. And so I'd like to have Kate start with that. And why don't you talk about a bit about competitive advantage?
Great. So as a super small company, relatively speaking, we're much bigger than we have been in the past. We've got 19 people, and we've been around for about 13 years. We've grown the whole time by having a foundational commitment to the very best possible ingredients that we can make for cleaning products and the very best possible packaging. We've always been sort of like your crunchy friends, crunchy product choice. And having that commitment has helped us gain more customers than we ever thought possible. So it's kind of like when you hear like, oh, a material was developed for NASA, like you want it in your kitchen, right? Like when you hear like that somebody has developed a product that's the lowest potential impact on human health, on pet health, on environmental health, that becomes adopted by a number of people. So
Hey, can I just ask you, because you have a really good story of how you got there in building the company. So do you mind just telling that little piece first? Because you didn't magically happen. It's something that you saw and wanted to change.
yeah, so in 2013, I actually noticed that there was a nonprofit that did a letter writing campaign against Procter & Gamble. This was when I was studying POOP and wastewater management. And I actually thought I would work for someone like Procter & Gamble, because I imagine there were a ton of regulations in the household product space, making sure that things like laundry detergent would be really low impact and have all these regulations. And I found out those regulations really didn't exist. And in fact, it took a letter writing campaign and a lawsuit by a nonprofit against Procter & Gamble to get tied to reduce, not even eliminate, but reduce the amount of a known carcinogen in free and clear laundry detergent. And I was shocked by any number of things, as I see a lot of you are learning about that. But I also saw an opportunity that if there was a nonprofit that was willing to do this campaign against this company, maybe there were also people that would be willing to seek out better products and that wanted and were in fact demanding better products. So I was able to take my background in product regulatory work and make a product that strove to not just meet the non-existent regulations, but go way beyond it. We looked for best practices. We followed a lot of European laws. In some cases, we made our own best practices because we didn't see them out there in terms of ingredient standards and packaging standards. That's turned into a competitive advantage for us for a number of reasons, one of which is that when new regulations come into play, we barely notice them. We don't really need to keep up with changing regulations because we're already at the forefront of best practices.
Thank you. I think it's a great story. It's a great example of each of us of how we can cause change and build the companies that we believe in, and that's a strong one. Kim, you had a few thoughts on this too.
Yeah, so in what we do, I think for us, the greatest competitive advantage that we've been able to offer is really helping to guide our customers who haven't had exposure to the reporting metrics that are now very prevalent with like GRI or SASB, how to report and capture things like landfill waste diversion. We are also a certified women-owned company, so capturing their supplier diversity credits in the proper place. So that's something that we've been able to use as a competitive advantage to help teach to our customers so that they can begin their reporting journey, but also something creative that we do is partner with customers on end of life of product. Oftentimes, if you're selling to a consumer, if you're B2C, you don't really have a lot of control over what happens to the product once it's out of your hands and it's in the customer's hands, what happens to it. So we've done some creative things. An example that I have around product stewardship with Hu-Friedy. They are a dental tool manufacturer. So when you go to the dentist and they use those stainless steel picks on your teeth, when they're done with those, they're very small and small quantities that the dentist goes through. Most of them would get tossed in the garbage in the waste bin and not recycled. That's a huge shame. So we partnered with Hu-Friedy to say, what can we do to collaborate and get those recycled? So we created a carton, a package that is now sent out with the new tools, with a label, our address, and all of the old tools come directly to us. So not only are we recycling those, but we're also capturing who sent those back because they're offering a credit back on the front end side when they buy their new product as an extra incentive for them to do the right thing. So we record then back to Hu-Friedy, who is it that is participating in this, and they're rewarding them for that.
Thank you. I think those are two great examples, right? Where people are actually two people here who are being proactive in using maybe purpose or ESG for their profit also and differentiating in the market. All right, regulation came up, right? Alex, why don't you, given your sort of role and scope in what you do in your business, why don't you talk about various enterprises and the regulation that's constraining or not constraining right now?
There's a lot to regulation this year. I think the best headline is regulatory divergence. Because it'd be really nice. I mean, does anyone work with standards or have developed standards? I actually think standards harmonization, whoever's good at comms, make that sexy, please. Make it cool or fun. We were getting towards certain things like that with, like you said, like the European model for certain things on the environmental industrial side. But now we have some whiplash. There's some reversal of those things. And so in ESG alone, you're talking anywhere from 600 to 2,400 different pieces of regulation, codes, standards, guidance documents, if you're a multinational, industrial, or consumer company. 2,400, just on the ESG side alone. So one of the trends that I've been seeing this year, and as of last, is a general counsel dedicated for ESG, because it's just so much to keep up with. We're seeing some walking back, some reversals, as we know, in the US administration. And so on the flip side of that, though, when we think about other pillars of industrial policy on the energy side, on one hand, we have steel tariffs that's trying to incent the domestic production of steel. And working with a green steel company here in the United States, we see the benefits to the revenues for this year going way up. But at the same time, the same CEO is telling me, hey, Alex, look, it's not enough. Why? Energy costs are going through the roof. And we can't find a place to localize, again, a really, really heavy balance sheet on the asset side. We can't just pick up and move these smelters. We can't. Great moonlighting, I'll take it. So with that, we're seeing that there's no easy answer. It's nuanced. There's the pros and the cons financially. That's sector to sector. For one of the companies we were working with, a large food company, multinational based here in Chicago, CPG. And they, at the beginning of the year, they had a $1 billion write-off because of the price of cocoa. $1 billion. And this is a volume business. They make their profits to the right of the decimal point. So all the voluntary side of things, sustainability, were put on hold immediately. Because they said, yes, we want to do these things, but it might have to wait so we can keep the business solvent. So that's where I think about counterfactuals, the trade-off decision-making. Industrial CPGs, we got it tough. And I don't think there's an easy answer, but energy will be a focal point and flashpoint. Shipping corridors will be a big flashpoint. The geopolitical conflicts, the regionalization of conflicting policy regimes. And one last example. This is new for us in certain spheres. What makes you compliant for CSRD in Europe on the DEI front makes you a target for the DOJ here in the United States. It's not easy.
Please say a little more on that particular thing.
There's 10 major
That was a big
standards.
bomb you dropped, right?
Yeah. There's 10 major standards in the Europe's CSRD. That's their marquee regulation on environmental and social requirements for any large business. Some of that is trimming down. One of the things they look for is demographic tracking. And they look for gender, and they look for race. And we know what's been happening for the DOJ in the United States, saying, look, DEI is now outlawed. And that's going through the ECC and other sort of DOJ vehicles to say, you cannot do this, and if you're publicly traded and reporting on these things, we will come after you. And so you see like the likes of Target and Walmart have rescinded, right? They've walked this back. Target received a lot of blowback and pushback from their consumer basis. Walmart, they had, I think, a $50 million commitment to DEI 3 years ago. It's all walked back.
All right, so that's another word, right, that has caused an uproar that we've had to remove DE&I, but I would suggest that's not part of our panel, but if you connect it to purpose, there are other words, and I think as you listen in your companies or yourself as you're reading, please find an alternative to that, and sometimes that alternative is inclusion. Because we're being inclusive, right? That's basically what the administration was asking, is that we include everybody. So again, don't look at all of these changes that we're going through as negative. Instead, you have to maneuver through them and around them to still achieve what you want to achieve, all right? So that would be, thank you for that. That was a really good round. And we continue on talking about now, all right, we touched on it, profit, right? How do you do good at the same time that we have these profit issues? And it's costly. So we talked about energy. Why don't we start talking a little bit about that from, I guess, an experience level, and maybe, Kate, you could talk about how you're managing that in your own organization.
Yeah, and I know Alex touched earlier on externalities. That's
Yes.
something that we think about a lot. I'm a utilitarian. I minored in philosophy, majored in engineering, so I'm a utilitarian. If anybody's, any fellow utilitarians in the room. Okay, so we think businesses like ours are poised to take in some of the those externalities. We think we should be responsible for things like the packaging that we create. We think we should be responsible for the environmental impact of the products that we sell for a profit, right? So that should all be within our realm. It's within our responsibility, and we need to do better as businesses of taking care of the things that we do. And so I'm really encouraged to see some changes in regulation, things like extended producer responsibility in packaging, and CPG is becoming a thing. There's not a lot of businesses that would say, like, we really want more regulation. We want more regulation on things like EPR because it levels the playing field. We're talking about profit and purpose. Right now, if you looked at my balance sheet, and you might say, hey, Kate, why don't you sell plastic bottles? They're much cheaper than paper packaging, which is what we do use. And if you're just looking at the dollars spent on the material, sure, that's correct. Plastic is cheaper. But the environmental cost, the human health impact of using plastic, disposing it, not to mention manufacturing it, which has a far disparate impact on communities that are already facing other issues. That's something that should be taken on by a business, and it's so weird to me that, like, we don't have to account for that, and it's a profit trade-off that I make that decision. So it's encouraging to see some laws changing it. It's going to level the playing field because in a small way, some larger companies that are using things like plastic will become more responsible. I doubt they'll ever be, like, fully responsible for the impacts and the costs, the environmental and the social costs of those things. One of the reasons that we're able to make those decisions is because we don't have any outside investors. I know that's a really hard thing to say in a room filled with lots of folks going for venture capital and all the sort of trappings that go with building businesses and looking for investors. We've avoided that entirely. We're completely owned by two people that are married. So my co-founders over there and also my husband. So we're a family-owned company. We can, any given day, we can decide, hey, let's figure out a way to pay our people more. Hey, this is a really stressful time for manufacturing populations, which tend to be heavily immigrant focused. So, like, this is a rough time for immigrants. Can we pay our people more? Can we bring up bonuses? We don't have to check with anyone before we make those decisions. And so having that, like, independence in decision making has been really key to being able to so-called balance purpose and profit for us.
Okay, that was a great answer. I just want to make one comment on that, is that as a small business, there's something interesting that happens as a business grows. It can keep to its values, right? Or it can change its values from pushes and pulls. But your organic growth is really admirable, and keeping to your values is also admirable. And so I commend you on that, but I also want you all to think about it for yourselves, is that there doesn't always have to be a compromise. So what is it that you believe in? And then align your teams in the same way. All right. We're going to go and look at now really consumer demand. We haven't talked about that, but what are consumers demanding? Alex, why don't you start with, like, the overall picture of where we're at?
Yeah, and maybe we can look at it B2C, B2B. B2B front, when you have large industrial supply chains, it's tough. Energy prices make it tough. They're looking for cost. I mean, for scaled commodities, scaled interim products. Right now with the tariff environment and this greater baseline of uncertainty, they want the environmental stuff too. But what I'm also seeing is, because of the supply chains being so multimodal and modal, in terms of how things get across the world, they are looking for greater transparency, though. So they might want to think about reorientation of how they make their products quickly, but they want to know where they're coming from then, too. If the mandate is for it to be in the United States domestically, they want to look tier 2, tier 3. So they're willing to, that's where the cost trade-off, there's some flexibility. The B2C side is trickier, and Kate, I'd love to learn from you and hear what you're seeing. Those that we're working with on the packaging front for CPG companies, saying it's really hard right now for consumers to pay more out of pocket at math, bottom of the pyramid type of economics, for these materials. Amcor Packaging, they have their North American division here in the suburbs, and my friend is head of not only strategy, but sustainability. They tie those roles together because they've never got the sustainable packaging to sell at scale. And she said, Alex, it's been a tougher year for that too. Again, I'm being candid and frank with all of you, and we have work to do to figure that out. They have not abandoned those product lines, but they're figuring out where are those product categories, and target buyers where they can get the lift they need to keep those product lines available.
So you're really also addressing the fact that you're buying your shampoo in a plastic bottle, you're willing to do it because you're moving money over to your groceries and you have inflation-related issues. And so then you also segment it, and you can look at a smaller, can you talk about this also in relation to what you're working on?
Yeah, it would be B2B. And for us in particular, if we're, let's say, working with an OEM, the change that we've seen, the evolution in that is a lot of transparency. So it's pretty standard in an RFI or an RFP to be asked for your human rights policy, your supplier diversity percentage, what your sustainability metrics are. And that's just a requirement to even participate. The other thing I'd say in the last 3 years that we've been asked to do that we've started is being EcoVadis rated. So as an organization, submitting all of those things, I would encourage you to look into it. It's certainly a great process to go through, and can be introspective to really understand the areas that you need to get better in. We're silver rated, by the way. But that's another thing that we're being asked to provide that gives that level of transparency to understand that, we are handling things and doing things in the right way. And then there's also certifications. There's always, if you're dealing with medical or pharmaceutical or aerospace, there's all different certifications you're going to need to have. In our industry, it's ISO 14001, but having all of those certifications and understanding where they're needed and how to participate within certain RFIs and what's required is something that's really gone up, I'd say, recently as well.
Great. Alex, you did talk quite a bit about this indirectly, but do you want to summarize how you're feeling and how people are responding as part of your value proposition, really?
Yeah, so not only, we're not just a manufacturer, we're also a brand, right? And so it's been interesting to see younger generations, but really people of all ages. I think consumers are more allergic to bullshit than they have been. They call you out. Nobody likes hypocrisy. To me, I think inauthenticity is a short-term strategy. There's karma. It will come for you. If you are doing something that is not in line with the things you're saying, people hear about that. And we all see it in the news when it happens, right? October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. There's currently a huge campaign for pink washing, right? So companies that say we really care about breast cancer and they put a pink ribbon on something like alcohol, which is a known contributor to cancer, or they put it on other products that have known carcinogens in them. So people are getting called out for that. So long-term strategy, you've got to be authentic, and people respond to that.
All right. So we're closing up this panel, but we have one more thing that we want to share with you is we didn't talk really about community, but here we are today in community, right? We're learning from each other. We're meeting each other. Hopefully your LinkedIn is expanding with all the people in here. So I would like each of you now to just give 30 seconds on how you came to mHUB and what you've gotten from it. So go ahead.
Yeah. Chicago gets in your DNA. I don't know if you agree with me. I believe so. On our city motto is, Urbis in Ortu, city in a garden, even though we were built on a swamp. I mean, it's crazy, right? Burnham, make no small plans. That's the ethos. 1871, the city burned down. 2 years later, 2 years, it was mostly rebuilt. It's so cool to run a business here in Chicago because in sustainability, environment, we share. We're so sectorally diverse. We have ag, we have manufacturing, we have professional services, we have tech, we have transport, we have logistics. It's all here, and the sustainability folks share, and that's the ethos of mHUB. I found Elizabeth, the great moderator of the last panel, and she's included me.
Fantastic. Go ahead, Kim.
Well, shout out to Allison Wenzel. I'm connected through her to mHUB and this wonderful community here. One thing that I wanted to share about community is use your resources. Although we've been in business for 47 years, we still every year work with IMEC, the Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center. We partner with DCEO and access grants every year for training, for new technologies, for a lot of different things. So use your resources that you have available to you and really leverage each other. I was so encouraged when I did a tour here to see how many cross collaborations that there are, and I think that that's the best way to get the end result that you all need is to support each other. So wonderful to see that.
Nice. I'm excited to be here at mHUB. This is actually the third location of mHUB I've been to. Who was at OG Catalyze? Who remembers Catalyze?
Yes.
Yes, okay, we have a few. So I go back to those days when I did a tour there because we were looking for a space of where to manufacture. You guys are all lucky we didn't go there. We make a ton of dust and a ton of noise. We eventually found a home down the street from here in a place where we could make dust and noise, but it's been great to stay connected to that community all the way for the past 13 years or so.
Oh, fantastic. All right. A round of applause for these amazing, amazing leaders. And thank you for your attention. And hopefully the takeaway for you is that you are leading and you can choose your purpose too and how you want to lead and take people. So thank you.